since it's been a while since we last recorded. A lot has happened in the NBA and with us.
How you doing, CJ? It's a safe space. It is called
okay.
CJ McCollum Show.
I'm doing okay. It's always difficult when your season ends, especially the way ours did. Getting swept, losing on your home floor. Always difficult, especially when you put together a really good season. We put together a really good regular season, 49 wins. Had a chance to get the 5th seed, had a chance to get the 6th seed, and obviously ended up with the 8th seed and played against a really good OKC team who's young but defends at a high level, obviously has the offensive firepower, and forces a lot of turnovers. And I think it was just a difficult series for us, obviously, without Z. Obviously, offensively, it was a difficult series for us, from a historical standpoint, just not scoring the ball, not shooting the ball well from 3. And defensively, we were pretty good outside of game 2. I'd say we were really good defensively throughout, but didn't play well enough. And I think I said it in my 20-minute post game. I needed to be great for us to have a chance to win this series, and I wasn't great. So we weren't going to be able to win this series, especially without Z, especially with the way our offense kind of performed throughout the series. But you credit OKC. That's a good team. Well coached, a lot of great players, a lot of young players who are going to be successful for a long time. And for us, it's just about, obviously figuring out how we can be successful long term, how we can put together a full season and then be healthy at the right time. But I think all those things will play a factor. And Griff talked about changes that potentially will be made to the roster. So we will stay posted to see what that consists of as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is, and Griff talked about that in his exit interview, where basically, in the years past, it was like, let's just see what this group can do when they're healthy. And, for the most part, we saw that. Zion, career high 70 games this year after playing just 29 the last 2 combined. And he was playing at all-star levels, career highs in assists, steals, and blocks. And Brandon Ingram played the most games since his rookie season with the Lakers. He had 64, and you transformed your game on the perimeter, career high, from 3 as well. So, there a lot of good in this season for you guys. You also, led the league in road wins. Not sure what the issue was at home, but the road wins. Franchise record as well, and you increased your wins, from when Willie Green, was a rookie coach to this year to 49. So there's a lot to walk away, right, from this season. Do you feel like the playoffs just feel like something was like there's like a built-in excuse given that Zion wasn't there, or just like it? Like, what was the feeling among the team? Because I know how deflating it was when, we saw him limp off the court.
Yeah, it was definitely deflating to not be at full strength and not be able to see the potential of what could have been in the series, especially considering the fact that he got hurt in the Lakers game, which probably gives us the 7th seed instead of the 8. And I think that makes us end up playing Denver in the first round, which is another really good team that's got experience. But I think all in all, it was just disappointing because it's such a letdown. Obviously, Z being hurt, but the way we lost, I think we had a chance to get game 1, obviously, and I think that set the stage for the rest of the series. And once they kind of settled in, they continued to kind of play at a higher level than we did consistently. We had our moments, we had our quarters, we had our spurts where we play a good 30 minutes or a good 35, but, there would be a quarter or just a lapse, maybe to start a quarter, that would change the outcome of some of these games. Obviously, we had a lot of turnovers, didn't make threes, struggled finishing on the basket with Chet there, but I think it was just a frustrating series because, you always think about what your team could have looked like healthy, but the reality is that we weren't healthy, and the reality is that we lost. And it's unfortunate, but it's a part of the game. And I think we had enough to compete better than we did. I think based on our roster and based on, the players that we have, it should have been more competitive. And it was competitive in the sense of games being close, but just not winning games, I think was the difficult thing to process, when you get swept like that, when you feel like you could have won at least one or two games, especially game 1, I think we could have got. But, it's it's living in the present, living in the reality of the fact that we lost, and then figuring out how to get better individually, figuring out, how to be better, and then figuring out how our team can be better collectively, and just continue to sustain high levels of play throughout the season, and then allow that to kind of transform and progress into the postseason.
Yeah, and so like you talked about, there's some decisions to be made in the offseason. Jonas Valanciunas, obviously an unrestricted free agent, and then the decision around Brandon Ingram's contract extension. He has 1 year left on his current deal, eligible for that 4-year, $208 million extension. And Pelicans typically haven't paid into to luxury tax, and they have 106 tied up in you and Zion, and BI. So we'll see. I mean, this is not, we don't usually get into numbers like this on this pod, but aside from that, like, how do you approach the off season? So season's over. What's that process like for you to kind of debrief with the team and yourself, and to kind of move into the off season?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just about trying to reset my mind, my body. Obviously, the soreness, the fatigue, the mental, physical that you go through throughout a season. I'm sure you're going through it now as you enter the playoffs and continue to cover playoff games. Like, you're just drained, emotionally and physically drained. So you try to rest, try to recover, spend time with family, spend time with the kids, spend time with my wife, the dog. Just try to have a sense of normalcy. In terms of schedule and routine, obviously the schedule is the same. Wake up, you get treatment, you go to the gym, you lift, you work out over and over again for 8 months, and then you kind of pause, take a break, allow your body to recover, and then you start to slowly ramp up again and really work on your body and your game. But right now, it's just allowing the body to kind of heal, allowing some of the injuries and things that you go throughout the season, the nicks and knacks, to kind of recover, and then slowly kind of planning your summer out from a work standpoint of, what days I'm working out, when does my ramp start, putting together the calendar starting in June, and we'll progress into the regular season. But I think that's kind of the focus right now, is to just kind of rest and recover, reset, get some things in order, really just focus on, family, focus on getting my mind right, get my body right before I begin to ramp up. But it is weird, like watching games on TV and
Are you watching?
To the gym. Some games. I've seen some of the Game 7 that Cleveland had against Orlando. I'll watch some of that Denver Timberwolves game around bedtime, and my baby girl, she's active at night, so just around that, you're watching
some sleep
games
progression.
And stuff. Yeah, she's going through a sleep progression. I'm going through a sleep progression, but
I'm sure you're catching up on sleep.
Yeah,
because I don't think people understand, like, games end, then you get on the plane, and then you sleep for, if you're lucky, for an hour or two, depending on how long the flight is. Then you got to get up and then go home or go to the next hotel. It's not easy. That, like, the games are not easy, but the travel for you guys, and I know you're flying charters, but still, it's still not easy. But okay, let's we can talk more just as news starts to come out with the Pelicans, and specifically, I know there's a lot of noise around Brandon Ingram, coming off of that playoff performance too. You're being hard on yourself. I'm sure he's being hard on himself as well. But he was pressured a lot by Lou Dort. He gave, even though BI is taller than him, he gave him some problems. And just want to talk about this Thunder team as they got the next matchup against the Mavericks. What did you take away from that young group? And, I think a lot of people are looking at this team, number one seed in the West. They're talented, but man, they're young and inexperienced. Do you think they're ready for the stage of, making a real finals run?
I mean, I think they got as good a chance as anybody. Obviously, Denver's probably the favorites. Whoever gets out of that Denver Timberwolves series will probably be the favorites. Just got a great message. Both kids are asleep in their cribs. Sorry.
That is a win. And look at you, spending time on the pod when you could be sleeping yourself.
This is a beautiful message. Sorry. But no, in regards to OKC, I think they got a combination of all the right things, right? They were the number one seed, but let's just be honest here. They're way ahead of the curve in terms of where people expected them to be at, in terms of expectations to start, compared to, when the rebuild kind of first started, then they get CP, then they start winning again, then they get all those draft picks, all those players. And
Chet
Chet takes a year to kind of recover, comes back.
Yeah.
J-Dub comes back, gets drafted, gets better the second year, and then they got the other Williams coming off the bench. Giddy, this is a good team, a young team, but good. They got the star power, obviously, in Shea, who can get rim pressure, gets to the free throw line, can shoot threes, especially late clock situations. You need guys that can shoot middies. They got multiple guys that can get to the mid range. They're a downhill team, which means they're consistently trying to get downhill, forcing you to play in rotations because they're always in position to drive closeouts. They got a rim protector who can also space the floor, which is rare in this league, is to have a 7-foot-plus unicorn who can guard at the level, sit in the drop, kind of stunt, still get back and protect. They got shooting coming off the bench. They got defenders. I think they're good. And, having played in OKC when Russ and KD were there, right? So I got to see some of that. And then, KD leaves, and then it's Russ. Then it's Russ and PG. Seeing them in the playoffs, the atmosphere in Oklahoma,
energy's crazy. Yeah,
that's a real home court advantage. That's top 5 in terms of engagement from fans, participation.
It's loud,
super duper loud. They know how to party and tailgate before the game right outside the hotel. They got it down, and that's something that I think the team thrives off of, and something that they weren't expecting or used to. Obviously they got good fans in the regular season.
It's the only show in town right now for them. Other than,
there's nothing to do besides eat steak.
College football. Yes, right.
And they got some good steak. But I would say you factor in all those things, I don't see why they can't get out of this round and go to the conference finals. I actually like them in this series, and I like the Mavericks a lot. I like the way Kyrie's playing. Obviously, Jay Kidd's coaching his butt off. Luka's playing well. They end up winning that round without Tim Hardaway Jr. He's got to be back at some point. That's a really good team. Shout out to Nico. He did a great job at the deadline of continuing to get pieces to surround.
Yeah, PJ and Gafford, they've been a seamless, additions to that team, and I think they've added a fire. That is kind of brought that group a little more whole than it was to start the year. And Kyrie, man, he's playing with a lot of joy right now. In talking to him, he's addressed that his maturity issues in the past and how he may not have been that happy, and it led to some immature decisions. I know that is a very blanket statement, talking about a lot of different issues with Kyrie, but the bigger picture is that it is evident he is happy. It is evident that he is feeling, at his best, and that him and Luka are really have found a nice way to work with each other. And we've talked about this a lot on this podcast, this Mavericks team, and how they've really figured things out. And Luka has been interesting because he was not healthy in that last series, and he was really hard on himself. He was talking about how he's letting Kyrie down. But the biggest thing about that duo is it's them figuring out ways to kind of supplement each other. And it's going to be interesting to see who actually guards Luka. And is it going to be Dort? Is it going to be, Jalen Williams? Obviously, Luka. For those who don't understand, how do you describe just the size of Luka?
He's the size of a power forward. So, he's built like he grew up on a farm. He's heavy. He's strong.
Yeah.
Still quick. Got great burst, great change of speed. But he's all of 6'8", 250. He's a big boy, man. He got to be 240. He got to be like 240. He got to walk around like 235,
no,
240.
he really, yeah.
That's a heavy man who can get to the basket, run a pick and roll, scores in transition, ISOs. I think he led the NBA in first quarter points. Like, he gets off to great starts. He's super aggressive. Kai is normally, filling the game out, kind of playing his role, and then Kai kind of presses the switch and turns it on as the game progresses. But I'd imagine they put Lou Dort on him to start, and then once he gets in foul trouble or whatever the case may be, they switch him off and let J-Dub guard him. They'll bring in Case and Wallace. They'll put him on them. They'll kind of play with their matchups a little bit. I'm sure Wiggins will guard him a little bit. They'll mix and match because they're going to do some switching. Once they sub Chet out, they'll do some switching 1 through 5. They'll probably mix in some matchup zones, some full court pressure to a zone. They'll play a little bit. I would imagine as the series progresses, they play with the lineups and they play with coverages throughout, because you can't give Kai and Luka the same coverages throughout an entire game. They'll hit into quarters or just randomly try to get the ball out their hands sometimes to make somebody else beat you. Similar to how they guarded B.I. and myself, I'm sure they'll have a game plan similar to that, to where you're living and dying with other guys being able to take shots throughout a series and hoping that the law of averages works out in your favor, especially in the playoffs.
So what's also interesting about this series is you got, 2 MVP candidates going head to head, if you will, in Luka and Shea. And I struggled. I put Luka second behind Jokic. I think, a lot of people had Shea as their number one, or figured if he's not number one, he's 100% should be number 2. But that's not how I saw it this season. Who do you think, who are you expecting to have a stronger series between those two, or you just expect it to be, they're both going to lead their teams?
I think they're both going to lead their teams. Obviously, Luka's workload usage is probably going to be a little higher than Shea's throughout this series. It's heavy pick and roll with him and Kyrie. Shea's going to get downhill, but Chet's a guy that can get you close to 20. J-Dub can get you close to 20. I think they have a couple other weapons and guys who will contribute throughout the series, to where Shea may not have to do as much heavy lifting. But I expect it to be a really good series, really competitive series, where they both show why they are considered MVP candidates. And looking forward to seeing the atmosphere, honestly, of the second round, and stakes continue to rise, stakes continue to raise as you get closer and closer to the finals. So it'll be really, really cool to watch, and it's unfortunate that we're not in it. It's the toughest part of the game, is that it's here and then it's gone, and you think about all the things you could have done better, all the shots, all the defensive assignments, and I think the cool part is we all competed at a high level. We all locked into the game plan and gave it our best shot in terms of preparation, just didn't execute as much as we would have liked throughout the series. And I think it comes down to making and missing shots. It's a make or miss league, and you got to be able to make 3-pointers and generate 3-pointers in the playoffs. And I think we generated some, but we didn't make them, including myself. And I shot the ball really well down the stretch of the season, and then I didn't shoot the ball well from 3 in the playoffs, and that hurts, especially if you only got 4 games to figure it out before it's over. And I think Dallas got shooting. OKC has some shooting on their roster, and it'll be interesting to see, how well players shoot, especially guys not named Shea, Luka, J-Dub, Kai.
Yeah. Also, just a little injury note. I mean, Maxi Kleber hurt himself, and likely done for this series. Possibly could return sometime in the postseason, but he's just kind of like a steadying force. Obviously, he's not your 1 or 2 option, but he's a guy that in the playoffs that you can rely on for a boost, specifically defensively. To your point, in terms of that atmosphere in OKC, I think I like OKC in Game 1, but it is a real big toss up for me who wins this series. Out of all the series, this one's a hard one to read. Do you?
So who are you going with?
I think I'm gonna still go with the Mavs, and that's purely based on the superficial inexperience of the Thunder, and going with the veteran duo in Kyrie and Luka, because what I've witnessed this year is that there's something special happening with them, but that's not how the playoffs play out. Those type of like esoteric concepts of what a team is that's not how it plays out on the court. So that's going to be a good series to watch. You're picking the Thunder.
I mean, they beat us, so
hey, that's not a reason. Is that how you look at it? It's like, I want the team who beat us to win the championship, so we have a bigger reason.
I mean, that would better. But I think just the way they're playing, like they're playing at a high level. They defend, they force turnovers, they're aggressive, they have home court. Obviously, Luka and Kai are playing extremely well. It's a toss-up. Tim will come back at some point. Losing Kleber, I think, hurts because that's a switchable guy that can shoot, stretches the floor well. But like you lose him, you gain Hardaway Jr. back. I think it's you'll try to figure that out. I think it goes 6. I'm gonna go Thunder in 6.
All right.
Thunder in 6.
Well, they do have home court advantage too, so that's a big thing.
It could easily be Dallas in 6. So,
I mean, it would be an official arrival. I feel like if they continue into the Western Conference Finals, like that is, I don't think people can throw the inexperienced moniker at them if you get to that point. I do, you talk about the Nuggets kind of being the favorites. We're recording this on Monday afternoon. Game 2 is Monday night. And, game 1, we saw Anthony Edwards go off for 43 points to hand the Nuggets a game 1 loss. 43 with 25 coming in the first half. He had 40 in the closeout game against the Suns too. And he's scored 35 points at least in the last 3 games. Tied with LeBron, Kobe, and LeBron. And so it's just like, he just came out today and said, I'm tired of the Michael Jordan comparisons. Let's like pump the brakes. And I will say, like, there's something to his stardom right now. He's also handling the post games, media really well. Like he's given people their flowers. He's like, he's humble, but yet has a dog in him. He's putting a master class on right now, and there's a reason why people are dubbing him the new face of the league, and whether or not that is a fair way to approach these playoffs is, I think it's kind of undeniable. We're seeing a little bit of a passing of the torch, but let's just start with Anthony Edwards, since I haven't talked to you since these playoffs started. Really
special. He's special.
Do you think that he's Michael Jordan's son?
He said stop Michael Jordan talk, so I'm going to stop with it. But what he's doing is impressive.
That's the president of the Players Association, right? They're standing up for his...
He said stop talking about us, we're going to stop talking about it. But what he's doing is impressive. The growth in his game, the comfort. First of all, the jump shot. The comfort in his jump shot. When he first got into the league, it was a work in progress in terms of shooting the ball with range. Had a midi, but... his 3 balls gotten better. His comfort off the bounce has gotten better. His handle, he's obviously strong. Finishes well around the basket. His setup moves, he's got a mid-post game. He's using the backboard. And he's not afraid. He's aggressive. I think Mike Conley said it. He thinks he's the greatest player to ever play the game. If you asked him, like, he would say that in private. Obviously, he won't say that in public. But that's his mentality. Like, he's out here to challenge people. He's out here to guard. He's out here taking a challenge on. And then... he's being authentic to himself. You talked about the post-game interviews. You talked about the press conferences. He's still a kid, So you still see the kid aura in how he talked about how, like, KD's his GOAT, basically. Like, he got to play against his GOAT and send him home, and he told him about it. And I think just being able to see, like, even his commercials, like, he's got funny commercials. Yeah. He's got, it's almost the Jordan feel in those commercials where, like, he's talking about the shoe, and I think
it feels different. It feels different from anything that we've seen lately. Just a campaign.
They're doing a great job of maximizing
shoe's
who
nice.
he is. I can't speak to all of that, as a
Okay.
leaning guy, but I think the commercials are dope, and I think that he's doing a great job of being himself. He's aggressive. He ain't afraid. He ain't afraid of the moment. He ain't afraid to give other people credit when credit is due. He's doing a tremendous job of enjoying the game of basketball and maximizing his talents. And the work is there. The work ethic is there because you see the growth in his game. You see how his teammates respond to him. You see how the staff responds and respects him. And what we're seeing, from a 22-year-old is incredibly impressive. It's really, really impressive to see. And you just imagine, the growth. How good is he going to be at 25, 26, 30? Scary.
Yeah. And this team is good. This Timberwolves team is really good. And they're very connected. Covering them in that Sun series, their defense, first and foremost, is outstanding. And you have to give a lot of credit to Rudy Gobert. And, Rudy Gobert, he wrote actually quite a poignant piece in the Players Tribune just about whether or not it was taking shots at Utah or, finding peace with where he is right now. Just about, not everyone's going to like you.
Right.
But I feel, comfortable being myself in Minnesota, and you can feel it. And because that team is accepting of each other's roles, people didn't think that was going to work. Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, and it's working. I mean, you got the top defense in the league. What do you think? Do you think that they're set up to, upset the defending champs? Because look, Jamal's not healthy. Luka's only one man. He's out here, wanting to clone himself. After what you saw in Game 1. Do you feel like the Timberwolves may just have the better matchup?
They match up really well, and I think the key is obviously Rudy's ability to switch. Draymond talked about it. He's been switching a lot. Started in the regular season with him getting more comfortable with him playing in small lineups and switching on the guards, and he's been moving those puppies. He's moving his feet well in the perimeter, forcing guys into tough shots, forcing people to play in the yard, making sure they're not getting 3-pointers off. Obviously finishing well around the basket, but you look at the impact of their ability to put Towns on big fella, Naz Reid on big fella, Kyle Anderson.
Had a huge Game 1 too, by the way. Shout out to the sixth man of the year.
He was awesome. Hit some big shots and just gave them another body to throw at Joker, who's unstoppable, but you need multiple bodies to throw at him. And then down the stretch, they had Rudy on them, which gave him some fits at times. Just a couple tough possessions is all you can hope for against Joker, right? Force him into a couple tough shots. Maybe you get a good contest on one or two of them and he misses. Rudy did a great job of controlling that aspect of the game in terms of just making sure the offense is always aware of where he's at. His presence on the court, you got to be mindful of him when you get to your 6 feet and under package, which is the floaters, the combination of finishes, right hand, left hand, scoop shots, all the stuff that Murray has in his bag and a lot of those other guys. You have to be aware of where he's at. And he's big enough to get contests on middies too. So it's just it's a really good team, well coached. They're deep. They got a lot of players who, defend, a lot of players who can shoot. Obviously, Mike Conley is the general, hits big shots, kind of keeps them organized. And
yeah, it really
if
does.
they're going to get those types of games from Anthony Edwards, I don't see how they don't go to the finals.
I'm right there with you. If he continues to put up 40 pieces, he's gonna have to continue to respond to Jordan comparisons. And I'm not saying that he's Jordan, but he's putting up Jordan-like numbers. Just to speak a little bit more to your point about, how they're defending them. When Gobert was the final defender, the Nuggets shot 9 of 15 from the field. Jokic went 6 of 11 on those plays. And when either Reid or Towns was the final defender and Gobert was on the court, the Nuggets went 12 of 32 and Jokic was 3 of 10. There's just a lot of looks that they can throw at Jokic. Jokic is superhuman at times, but even Superman can have his own kryptonite if it's overpowering him. So I'm not going to say that the Nuggets they're out of this one by any means. Like, it's easy to overreact after one game, and you got Michael Malone, who's a fantastic coach, and but it is there's some, you see some depth issues with Denver's bench, and Jamal just not being 100%. But I think it's going to be a really good series. Like, these are two really good basketball teams. So are you going with the Mavs in that one? Mavs. Are you going with the Timberwolves in that one?
No, I got Denver. Winning the series, even though they lost the first game. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota won, especially if they continue to play like they have. But I think Denver plays better. I think they are the best team in the last 3 minutes of a game. You talk about clutch performance. Last 5 minutes of a game, they're the best with their two-man actions with Jamal and Joker. Obviously, Jamal's a little injured, so that kind of affects the pick and roll, his efficiency. But Minnesota also has big wings they can throw at Jamal. McDaniels is doing a fantastic job on Jamal, fighting over screens, getting contests. This series is not going to come down to Jamal and Joker. It's going to come down to role players. Yeah. I think it's going to come down to KCP, the tall shooter.
Oh, Michael Porter Jr.?
It's the tall shooter's name. Porter Jr. It's going to come down to Porter Jr.
No, it's a very accurate description of him. He's
like
massive,
a 6'11"
and his shot is pure. 6'11"
with a ratchet.
Yeah.
So exactly. I got baby brain right now, but also like I want to see Peyton Watson. Shout out to my Excel guy. I want to see him get some minutes. Yeah. That's another body that they're going to need to throw, into the mix to kind of guard Anthony Edwards. They're going to need Christian Braun to come out there and defend, to bring energy to finish well around the basket. They're going to need Smooth Reggie to come out there, and they may need DeAndre as well. So I think it's just going to come down to.
I think they're going to need to throw in DJ.
It's going to come down to how well those guys play throughout the entire series. Obviously, Denver has home court advantage, but they're going to need to get game number 2 because when they get back to Minnie, it's going to be rocking.
It really is. I think I'm going with Minnesota in the series, but I don't, that's
you think? How many games?
6.
Okay.
I don't know. I was all in on the Nuggets. I was all in on the Nuggets until I got to do a Timberwolves game in the playoffs, be around that team, see how connected they are. Even with Finch, like that. Did you watch? You watched that game? You said you were watching it with Margot. That he was like seated next to the bench, and I liked Ali LaForce
coaching, but not really coaching.
Right, like that's so crazy. But then I saw him motion for Ant to come sit in the chair next to him, and Ali LaForce had a great. She's like, it's like you go and sit in the principal's office, and you get they give you like a quick pep talk, but it kind of worked. I just think that team's got something going. The vibes are immaculate, and I don't know if Denver's all the way healthy. If they were all the way healthy, maybe I would take a different approach, but no one knows. We will see. That's going to be a great series. Let's run through quickly some of the other series. Knicks Pacers, again, also tonight as we're recording this on Monday. Who do you like in that series? There's a lot of little storylines, ex-Raptor versus ex-Raptor, Pascal versus OG, Jalen Brunson versus Carlisle. Obviously he was his coach with the Mavericks, and there was backstory about, getting benched in playoff series, and, there's just some history there. Obi Toppin, a former Knick, and just the old school Knicks Pacers battles back in the day. I don't know if many of these players remember those or were, They
definitely don't. They're definitely too young.
But I know the old heads have been telling them the stories since the matchup was, finalized. What's your take on this series, and who do you think is going to advance?
I like the Knicks. Love the Pacers team though. Love their offense. How well they've been playing throughout this season, but looking at how well the Knicks have been playing, specifically Jalen Brunson, like he has been phenomenal. He's been All-Star, All-NBA caliber. He's been USA Olympic team caliber. Brunson. Well,
speaking of 40-point games, he's put up 40-point game after 40-point game.
and it may be even like Anthony Edwards is doing incredible and it's impressive, but Jalen Brunson's like 5'11". Like he's paint scoring, he's got pivot action, he's getting to the midi, he's getting to the free throw line, hitting threes, and he's doing it in the Garden, which is like the mecca of basketball. So I think just the world is a better place when the Knicks are playing well. Now their fans obviously are, you're in New York, very interesting, and I love the videos I get to see when they win games online. It's just the accents, orange and blue skies. Like seeing them celebrate Knicks' success is like second to none. Like it's so fun to watch them celebrate.
So desperate. They're so desperate. You feel their desperation.
And they're right there. They're doing this without Julius Randle.
Right.
Which is
that Villanova connection, the Villanova Knicks. I mean, you've been on deep playoff runs. Like the talent level on this stage, everyone knows how to play. And so being connected, understanding each other's roles, knowing how to communicate without communicating, like that, those are the little edges that, like push teams over. And there's something to this team. They don't give up.
It's true. And just looking at that series against the Sixers, how they won, I think they were down 6 with 28 seconds left, and they won that game. And then they were up 6 with 25 seconds left, and they lost. Just understand the importance of possessions, how important role players are. You talked about Hart, you talked about DiVincenzo, hitting big shots, defending, rebounding. Tibbs is going to play his starters 40 to 45 minutes a night.
Right. And that's my fear. How beat up are they going to be? They're also out without Bogdanovich. He carried a heavy offensive load.
It's tough. I think this is a coin flip 6. This is a coin flip series that ends in 6 too. I'm going with the Knicks in 6.
I think this is a hard matchup too for the Knicks. I mean, Pascal,
Pascal versus OG, old times.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's going to be.
I look forward to watching.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think for some reason, I think it's just going to have some nice old school vibes, because that's like these are, the Knicks just kind of play like that.
Who are you taking?
I'm gonna go with the Knicks.
Knicks and
I don't know. I'm just throwing things out right now. I'm like Knicks and 7.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a hard series. I think it's going to be a hard
another
series.
7-game series.
So Knicks and 7. Lastly, let's wrap up. The Cavs were the only team to win a 7-game series in the first round against a really, really, up-and-coming Magic team. Paolo Banchero probably doesn't get enough attention for the kind of star he is. I mean, rookie of the year in his rookie year, all-star in his second year, led his team to a 5 seed in the East, taking an experienced Cavs team all the way to 7. Dude is talking about big, like when you're in his presence, you realize how big he is. He's kind of like a linebacker. But, Magic and Jamal Mosley, great coach. There was a nice first showing for them in the playoffs, but it's now Donovan Mitchell was just too much for them to handle. But now they face the bigger beast of the Boston Celtics, who have just been waiting, who have just been sitting, waiting, resting. We don't know how healthy Kristaps Porzingis is, but I'm sure it helped to have all those days off. What do you think of that series? And do you think that the Cavs can give them any trouble?
Define trouble. Like, can they win a game? Absolutely. I think Miami Heat were able to get a game. I think the Cavs can probably get 2. I say they get 1 for sure, maybe 2. Playing in Cleveland, Don can go off. Darius Garland can go off. They probably get Jared Allen back. They're going to need him in terms of just another guy that can guard, protect the rim.
If he can't come back.
if he can't come back, then the Celtics are going to play small most of the game anyway. If Kristaps plays, they're going to go small at some point where JT goes to the 5 and they go small, switch everything. So they could go at Mobley and be just fine. But I think the problem is that Boston does all the things you're supposed to do well analytically. They shoot threes and they defend. They're great in the half court. They switch. They got a bunch of guys that can create and put pressure on your defense and get downhill with rim pressure. They make pretty good decisions at the rim in terms of when to kick it out, when to finish, and they got some guys that can score in the half court. Obviously Tatum, obviously Brown, but Derek White's been great. Obviously Drew Holiday, guards, hits big shots when you need them to. They got Sam Hauser coming off the bench, knocking down shots. They got Al Horford, who they can play in the 4 or the 5. He's stretching the floor. They just got championship DNA. So I think it's hard to beat a team like that who has home court, has championship DNA. They're rested, and they've been here before, right? Like they've been on this journey before and come up short, so they kind of know exactly what it takes. And I think for the Cavs, they're a really good team. Obviously, a little banged up. Has some troubles with Orlando, who's a really good team, but a young team. Boston is different than Orlando in terms of experience and in terms of star power. And playing in the Garden is a little different than playing anywhere else. And I'm talking about the Boston Garden now. Like it's a hectic atmosphere. You've been there. I just think that Boston, just from a talent standpoint, from how well they played this season, like they won 60-something games for a reason.
Yeah, I'm going with Boston in this one.
Boston in 5.
Boston in 5.
5 and impossible.
Also, Don is beat up too. I mean, that knee's been bothering him. And he scored in the game I had in game 6, where he had 50. He scored every single point in the fourth quarter. Like, Darius is going through some stuff too. When he had that broken jaw this year, it's a story I wanted to get into, and maybe I'll tell, because I have them this upcoming week, I believe. I have game 2 and 3. He had the broken jaw. It was wired shut. That was just in the middle of the year. He was wired shut for 3 weeks, and he's still kind of clenching. And, so, and he's had a lot of issues. Like, you remember he had both those eye issues. Everyone deals with injuries, but, sometimes they can kind of catch up to you. And he's still kind of working himself. He lost so much weight, and he says he's still not feeling like himself. And you can kind of see that. Like, his confidence is not as high. The team keeps telling him to shoot. Donovan kind of dragged them, across the finish line in that first series. So, is he going to have enough to outscore the entire Boston Celtics team, especially if they're hitting their threes? I don't know if they are. So I think Boston should take care of business. That's, what everyone expects of them, even without Kristaps in this second round. It's going to be an exciting second round. I know that you're feeling some type of way. The Virgo in you is overthinking and blaming yourself and picking yourself apart. But, you had a great year. Huh?
The Virgo in me is definitely still recovering.
Yes. But, lean into the off season and your family, and your kids are both asleep in their cribs. So enjoy your Monday afternoon.
I will definitely do that. I appreciate it. I hope you have safe travels. Appreciate everybody tuning in to the podcast. As always, joining Cassidy and myself. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us wherever you listen to your podcast, and stay tuned for another exciting episode soon.